Good day, Internet.
Good day, Internet.
Good day, Internet.
Hi.
Good day, Internet.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, everyone heard you.
Hi, Internet.
Say hello.
That was Rich.
Hello.
It was.
Hello. Rich, I like your cool, I'm in a dungeon, but where? Look.
Yeah, it's true.
For anybody watching the video, you know, it's kind of a mood.
It is. I've been trying to very, very gradually trying to make it not look like I'm doing this in my bedroom. Now, the footboard of the bed right there probably betrays it a little bit, but
I don't
feel
think
like
you
I'm
can tell anymore. But also, you know, you podcast from all sorts of rooms.
Exactly. But thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the compliment.
Hey, quit meowing. This is real work business.
This is real work.
I feel like Good Day Internet would probably rather hear from Jesse than anyone else.
Yeah, people can see your head. According to the Discord chat, that's the only topic going on right now.
Oh, I mean, it is the baby.
My other one's crying in the back, so this is probably better this way.
Roger, how old is Jessie now?
She is 3. You are 3.
Oh, you're a big girl. A big kitty. You're a big kitty.
She is very heavy.
Meow.
She has surpassed the 15-pound limit.
Yeah, what? Yeah, I don't know what 3-year-olds should weigh. Is that a big baby or a toddler? Toddler.
I feel like in the 30s. In the 30s at 3.
She's
probably
20.
pretty good.
Yeah, she's 29. All right, I get it.
When people say my kid is in the top 95 percentile, I'm like,
It's the weirdest parent brag of all time.
well, or they're kind of on the lower end of the percentile. I'm like, okay.
But they're in the percentile, so it's like a normal.
Yeah, it's like they're taller or shorter, or
those charts are a good metric to see where your child is, health wise or developmentally, because that's what parents always work. But sometimes she was on the small end, and then she rapidly got larger in the past year or so. So now she's tracking the line before she was a low end.
And drinking all that muscle milk.
Well, I used to joke because my wife bought a big case of it for some reason. And I thought, can we give it to kids instead of just giving them formula? But she would have to work out with her Fisher Price My First gym set. It's little dumbbells and, elliptical machine. It's really just a circle. It's not really an ellipse.
All right, Sarah, I have a show to ask you about.
Okay.
Only Murders in the Building. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh,
Never even heard of it.
I've heard.
It's a Hulu thing. It's got Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez.
Like it already.
And it's amazing.
Is it about murders?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's about one murder.
Is it comedy?
Wow.
It's not. It's. I thought it was
Steve Martin and Martin Short.
I thought it was going to be slapstick because of Steve Martin and Martin Short. My daughter thought I wanted to watch it just because it had to do with podcasts, which I didn't know until we started watching it. Essentially, there's a murder in the building, and those three create a podcast about it because that's the only thing they have in common.
Wow.
And
I have not heard of this.
Becomes more of a detective sleuthy kind of thing, and it is funny in so many subtle ways. It is. It's pretty good. And then episode 8 is the last one we did. There's 10 episodes in the first season, and we finished episode 8. And during episode 8, I had to stop the show twice because I was laughing so hard I couldn't hear what they were saying.
So it
sounds like a good show.
Sarah's question, it is funny. A comedy.
It's funny.
Okay. It is. But it's you're not going to laugh every episode. It's a slow build.
I'll watch pretty much anything that Steve Martin does.
Yeah.
So I will add it to the list. And
it's on Hulu, so.
Yeah, I can get it. I caught up on Euphoria season 2 this weekend. I don't know if anyone watches that. I would not
on Euphoria memes.
I would not recommend it unless you're ready for uncomfortable teenage drama. And that's not even doing it justice.
Is that the one with Zendaya in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've heard of it. I just haven't seen it.
It's good, but it's like, oh my god! Like every episode, you're like, are they even allowed to do
You're like, oh my word.
It's pretty racy, but it's really good
Nice.
if you're into that sort of thing.
One of my top 5 favorite movies of all time is 10 Things I Hate About You, because it really encapsulates a lot of that teen angst, the relationships and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Also a good Heath Ledger movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed
And
it
a pretty
is.
and pretty good retelling of Taming of the Shrew. Like Shakespeare retellings are usually fall into two camps. Pretty good and really bad.
Yeah, it's that's just I love
Jesse,
that.
you're too young for
Yeah.
Euphoria.
Any kind of media that can capture
That much I know.
that teen angst, but not in a overly angsty way.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say this is that times a million. but it's still somewhat relatable.
yeah.
Even though I've, been out of high school for a couple of years now. But yeah. What else did I watch this weekend besides football?
Oh my gosh,
goodness.
so much football.
Oh my gosh, it was the best
football.
football weekend ever.
It was so good.
It was just it was just hit after hit. If you don't like the NFL, you'd be like, who cares? And that's fine. But if you do, it was maybe the best football weekend ever.
Even if you didn't like football, it was worth watching the games to watch your friends react to the football,
have
because there was a
meltdowns.
lot of just like shouting and like dropping of phones in my house, because that's how we usually watch the games with kids running around. So it was just a lot of that.
Saturday's games were. There's a difference between a person who casually watches NFL and somebody who really enjoys the game. And Saturday was a day for people that really enjoy the game. A lot of defensive plays, a lot of little strategies going on, not the big, bomb throwers and everything else, not the big yardage gains, all this stuff. And then Sunday kind of came in with the other way around. It was more.
It's like
palatable.
NFL Blitz.
Yeah,
Last quarter was NFL Blitz.
Yeah, the last game especially was just like, oh, hey, here's a 90-yard pass. Here's another 90-yard pass. Here's a 90-yard pass.
Right. And both of Sunday's games, I'm like, okay, it matters who the Niners end up playing. So I'm like mildly curious, but I didn't really have a dog in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm shrieking. My dog, my cat are like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I just need to be on Twitter right now.
Yep.
I do feel a little bad for the people at the networks that have to then build the narratives for the next week, because not only was it was very an entertaining weekend, but a lot of the obvious narratives that you would have for the postseason are now gone, and in a good way. As a fan, it's oh, there's a lot of new teams that usually don't make it into don't usually win playoff games, let alone a couple.
Sure.
So that's cool. But there's not it's the dynasty versus the scrappy upstart kind of
Right.
I guess Kansas City is the closest you get there, but it will be interesting to see.
This weekend saw that you can't have the pupil and the master face each other because Tampa Bay, and then also you can't have a rematch of last year's Super Bowl because of Tampa Bay,
which is yes.
So like you said, a lot of those narratives that could be wrapped into it are gone. So they're gonna have to. It is going to be a tough sports week coming up with new narratives.
What will Joe Buck wistfully call us our attention to? I don't know. We'll have to see.
I know there are a lot of folks watching and listening who are like, who cares? And I have cared very little about the NFL for the last, let's call it 5 years. Mm-hmm. Partly because the Niners, they get close, but that's my team. And when they're out, sometimes I'm just like, whatever. There's a head injury and I'm just like, this sport. But boy, when it's fun, it's fun. I had a fun football weekend.
I think what any football fan wants is a close game. Even if they definitely want their team to win, they don't want. I mean, it's not fun to watch a blowout.
Likes a blowout.
Right, and all these games were decided within a score. You had three field goals with 4 seconds left on the clock in the fourth quarter to finish the game, and the last game went to overtime. Like, they were all very close games. It was wonderful football.
And now there's the whole thing about we should change overtime, not fair. Which, I mean, doesn't seem fair if your team loses, but that's kind of how it's been. So that's how it's played.
The exception to the blowout, because Sarah, I usually agree with you. A blowout is not the fun thing to watch. However, the exception was last week when Buffalo just completely destroyed the Patriots, who, if you don't watch football, they're like, one of in the last 20 years have been
anybody
like
but the Patriots. The mantra
has been like
in my
a premier dynasty. So I feel like for most football fans outside of the New England area, and to you, you have my sympathies.
There are times where a blowout just feels good. It's like eating a really good sandwich where you're like, gosh, that was good. Mm-hmm. Yep, every bite.
You don't always want corned beef, but when you do, you do.
A friend of mine who doesn't, not only football, but just doesn't get sports. It's just like, you don't play for the team. You have no financial benefit from this team. Like, why do you care? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just what people do. Not everybody, but when you do care. And it's like, it like makes you happy. You're like part of a crew.
Yeah, Ken and I were talking about it. Like, my favorite teams are San Francisco, whoever's playing against Dallas, and then the underdog, whichever team is the underdog, which can change during a game, because if
how can it change during a game? Isn't the underdog set in stone as you go into the game?
If you're betting, yes, but as the game goes on, one team, if the underdog team, say the Browns, start getting a 15, 20-point lead on the Patriots. Well, not the Patriots, because I would never root for the Patriots, but the Bengals. Then I'm gonna start rooting for the Bengals to come back. Why? Because I want that close game. That
isn't an under. That's what I'm saying. It's like that doesn't fit the definition.
Yeah, you just want a close game.
Yeah. Or Roger, like if a starting quarterback is injured, and then you have like the rookie that's never played before. I would say then.
But see, at that point, but that's what I'm saying. It's not an underdog is a narrative that's built up, right? Mm-hmm. You can't. I don't think you can have an underdog suddenly switch. You can have people on the. You can have like a third string quarterback come out first time playing in a championship game. Yeah, you could totally root for him, but he might be the underdog story, but the team wouldn't be necessarily.
Okay, well, let's just agree to disagree on our definitions of underdog, because my definition has nothing to do with how the game starts.
Well, so we have thoughts. I think that's our fun takeaway from this.
The over-unders thoughts.
Yeah, that should be a new podcast.
Like I'd even
DTNS After Dark, the over-under.
There's so many betting things that come out of sports betting that I had absolutely no idea of until Justin filled me in on the over under, because I never understood it. Like I understand it as the point difference at the end of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like so
if you're in the betting circles, yes, but I'm not. So
but when someone says like, what do you think the over under is? Like, what they're talking about.
Yep.
And I always set it at 6, which is
like, what's the likelihood that this team will win?
And then beating the spread, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Analyst expectations. See?
Yeah.
I'm amazed. You know what?
All over again.
Can you imagine if people? I'm sure people do.
The Bengals posted 32 points, but analysts estimated 35.
Oh, for sure they do.
Bengals stock down 10%.
Oh, you know what isn't down?
Skype.
DTNS.
Show.
Actually, yeah, Skype is not down. Look at us.
You go,
awesome.
Skype.
We beat the spread.
And just reminder for me, I do not read the promo, right?
Yeah. Oh, we need a coming up.
Oh dear. Hold on.
Oh.
That is my bad.
And once that's in, you just read the cold open and Joe will play the music.
1 second.
So what about...
This is like watching my brain in action. Blah, blah, blah.
I'm just mentally recalculating all the times in the show.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Cool. Just read the cold open, and Joe will play the music.
All right. I'll count myself in. In 3, 2. Coming up on DTNS, Apple says it'll announce so many things this year, but don't count out Amazon, Alphabet, and Microsoft, who bought up so many companies last year. And also, let's save some heat. This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, January 24th, 2022. In Studio Redwood, I'm Sarah Lane.
From lovely Cleveland, Ohio, I'm Rich Stroffolino.
And I'm Roger Chang, the show's producer.
Before the show, we were talking about football. Well, we were also talking about the over-unders on all sorts of things. If you'd like to get that wider show, it's called Good Day Internet. Have a lot of fun before and after the show every day. It is available at patreon.com/DTNS.
And of course, we want to give a big thanks to our top patrons, including Hector Bones, Tim Ashman, and Johnny Hernandez.
Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Meta announced that it's building an AI research supercluster, or an RSC, which is a supercomputer designed to train machine learning systems and set to be complete later this year. Meta says the RSC will be used to build improved content moderation systems, also develop augmented reality features, and design experiences for the metaverse. Phase 1 of RSC is already running using 760 NVIDIA GGX A100 systems with 6,080 connected GPUs and providing a claimed 20 times improved performance on machine vision research tasks. Phase 2 will bring the total GPUs up to 16,000 and be able to train AI systems with more than 1 trillion parameters on datasets as large as an exabyte.
In December, a UK High Court judge ruled that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange could be extradited to the U.S. This overturned a district court judge that blocked extradition on mental health grounds. However, a High Court judge has now granted Assange the right to petition the UK Supreme Court for a hearing over his extradition. There's no guarantee that this request for a hearing will be granted or what would happen at that hearing. Just this is the latest update going on with Julian Assange.
Attorneys general from the District of Columbia and also the states of Texas, Washington, and Indiana filed a lawsuit against Google, alleging that the company deploys dark patterns to influence users to share their location data. The lawsuit also alleges that from 2014 to 2019, Google made false claims about information collection when people turned off the location history in their settings.
Panasonic will start mass-producing new lithium-ion batteries as early as 2023, which are twice as big as older versions, but offer 5 times the capacity, estimated to provide 50% more range at the same weight, while costing up to 20% less to produce. Panasonic began development of these batteries at the request of Tesla, and no surprise, they'll be the first to receive the first shipments.
Apple extended its exemption from its in-app purchase commission for online group and event apps until June 30th. Apple introduced this exemption back in 2020. The company said that the extension was due to the recent resurgence of COVID and its continued impact on in-person services. All right, Rich, let's talk about big companies buying smaller companies.
Yeah, I mean, if it seemed like big tech went on a little bit of a buying spree last year, it's not just you. We have some data from the analysts at DealLogic, and they found that Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet each announced more acquisitions in 2021 than any year in the past decade. Microsoft publicly announced 56 deals, Amazon 29, and Alphabet 22. The value of those deals also hit 10-year high for Alphabet at over $20 billion. Amazon's $15.7 billion deal volume only trails behind 2017, and that's when they bought Whole Foods for $13.7 billion, so that kind of spiked that year. Microsoft's only a bigger year for acquisitions was 2016, and that's when it acquired LinkedIn for a cool $26 billion. So, a lot of these figures are a little inflated based on one large acquisition in 2021. Microsoft bought Nuance for $19 billion, and Amazon is buying MGM Studios, or closed on buying MGM Studios for $8.5 billion. So those are some big deals. Alphabet actually had their big deal with Fitbit close. That was valued at $2.1 billion. So it only accounts for about 2.1% here. Sarah, I know there's been some regulatory speculation about maybe why these deals are closing fast and furious these days. I'm curious. At the end of the day, I guess, what are your thoughts on just the kind of the scale and scope of these acquisitions?
I mean, a lot of the acquisitions over the past couple of years, but let's use 2021 as an example, because that's what we're talking about specifically. A lot of this seems to be a company saying, okay, life has changed for a lot of folks. Here's a company that we can acquire to make us the supplier for that, cloud situation that somebody has to now deal with now that they're working from home. So some of that, I think, is definitely a part of it. My first reaction was like, well, where's Activision Blizzard? That's 2022. So that's not even factored into this. I wonder if when we get to the end of this year, what we're going to look back, are we going to look back on the 2021 numbers and say, yeah, well, the Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet, certainly made some big purchases, but I wonder how much the same trend is going to continue, or I wonder how much, if the FTC gets involved, how much of this kind of land grab won't be possible anymore.
Yeah, and that's kind of where everyone is. I think some of the speculation is the FTC is trying to hedge their bet, or these companies are trying to hedge their bets against the FTC. They've already started. The FTC has started, sending out letters to some companies that, hey, might be in the merger acquisition talks, letting them know that we are going to be reviewing this, possibly rolling back mergers if we find there are competitive reasons to do so. So kind of not taking necessarily strong action. Probably the biggest action the FTC has taken is trying to block the NVIDIA ARM deal coming out with a bunch of global regulators to that degree. And that's where I think it's interesting, because Microsoft, buying Nuance, that I don't see that as a competitive issue necessarily. That's a huge deal for Microsoft. Obviously signals, where their continued investment in things like AI and around healthcare and that kind of stuff. Amazon buying a movie studio, not surprising given the current landscape of streaming. It's seeing that the FTC has already moved to block that NVIDIA ARM deal with the Activision Blizzard now acquisition. That to me seems a lot more analogous to that in terms of how it's positioned in the market. And I feel like that to me feels more like a move to, hey, this is in terms of any of these other deals, this is, twice as big as, or more than twice as big as buying LinkedIn, for Microsoft. So yeah, that to me feels like if we're going to say something is a reaction to potential FTC scrutiny, that deal to me feels like that more than what we saw necessarily in 2021.
At the same time, every single one of these deals, I remember thinking, is this even going to happen? It's a little bit too much. I definitely felt that way when Microsoft bought LinkedIn in 2016. Like that was not last year. Now it's sort of like, oh yeah, Microsoft owns LinkedIn, whatever. So much of this, I think, is the company that is acquiring the smaller company, or they're acquiring whatever company for how much of a lump sum, says we can't do this. We can't do this without them. It's not about hurting competition. It's about the fact that we need this, and we're not able to do this without this extremely talented group of people that we're now going to absorb into our company. And that works sometimes, not always, but in many cases, as we saw in 2021, we'll see if there's some pushback on it. But Fitbit is the only deal I can really point to where it was kind of touch and go for a while.
Well, and it seems like that ARM deal is going to be the same way. And that's a great point, though, is to think about with that deal is the FTC is not the only game in town. The EU and increasingly China have a big say in a lot of these deals, too. And the FTC is not operating alone for sure.
Well, there's a Chinese firm called Fuzhou 985 Technology. Might not be a household name for you. It wasn't for me until recently, but it has made news after it acquired a WeChat account previously set up for Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison. So just an account, not WeChat itself. This wasn't Morrison's personal account either. His office used it to message Australian voters of Chinese ethnic origin with messages in Mandarin, talking to the folks. This isn't unusual either. Both of Australia's major political parties use WeChat to communicate in this manner. Other countries do the same. Morrison had about 76,000 followers on the account. So seems like a lot, but maybe not so much for a political figure, but this was the way that he was talking to certain folks who were interested in what he had to say. Emphasis on what he had to say. These WeChat accounts were set up for political leaders in Australia through outsourced agencies. Records show that this particular account of Morrison's, or at least was attributed to Morrison, was registered back in 2019 with the name of a Chinese citizen in mainland China as the operator. The agency reported that it lost access to the account in July of 2021 and then emailed WeChat on January 10th asking for the account to be returned, saying, hey, this is our account. The account renamed itself Australia China New Life in January and notified followers it would promote Chinese life in Australia. According to a Fuzhou 985 employee, the company that bought the account did so because it had a large fan base, but was unaware that it was connected to Morrison at all. WeChat owner Tencent said that the dispute would be handled in accordance with our platform rules.
WeChat just kind of saying like, hey, read the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into this.
It was kind of a head scratcher for me today, Rich. So I'm like, okay, there was an account that was not Prime Minister Scott Morrison's personal account, but something that people attributed to what he was doing and saying that was designed to help the Chinese community in Australia feel more included, using Mandarin as their language, for example. And then all of a sudden it's sold, and then it's somewhat changed in its goals, for how to reach everybody that would follow this WeChat. And sure, I mean, we're talking about under 100,000 people, but if those are highly engaged people, that's still a lot of folks.
Well, and it's still, a politician trying to reach a constituency in a way that other political parties in Australia are doing, and doing so. Like there's been a lot of reaction from Morrison and others in his party, kind of saying this is censorship of free speech. WeChat needs to do something about this. I think that's maybe a little hyperbolic. It seems like what's interesting to me is I wonder if we crawl into a WeChat subreddit, if this kind of, hey, someone sold, I used, an agent to buy an account if I'm a business or something like that, and I registered it with this person living in China, and now all of a sudden it got sold. If that doesn't happen, and it just so happens that, hey, they had the head of the Australian government, and so it makes international news now.
I will add very quickly that this is one of those situations where, as a politician or a political party, often said is like, you need to control the messaging. You need to control your message. In some ways, it's also about like, you need to make sure the platform you're on isn't going to be sold from underneath you, because that can be incredibly detrimental to your messaging.
One thing that won't be detrimental to our messaging is reclaiming maybe some waste heat. And now you may be saying,
Rich, speak for yourself.
Seamless. Let me just tell you this. Listen, Sarah, in the world of energy, waste heat, it's all over the place. Okay.
Right. You're paying for heat. It's not going, you're not warm. It's going somewhere else.
It's going somewhere. I mean, if you ever touched a hot water pipe in your basement, even though your parents warned you not to, and you thought better of it, and you still tried it anyway, that waste heat is what caused that first degree burn, Sarah. The idea of using something like a thermal electric generator is also not necessarily a new idea. These operate by putting the generator by a heat source, and it generates a current as electrons move from the hot to the cold side of the device. So in 2020, scientists at Penn State and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory created a thermoelectric generator that proved more efficient than commercial units in high temperature situation. The only issue was that it was rigid. It needed to be glued onto something like a heat pipe, which having to go through the glue decreases the efficiency. The glue is absorbing some heat after all. Now the team has published research on a new flexible thermoelectric generator, which can wrap around common waste heat sources without any glue. Think of any number of heat pipes that you come across. In tests on a 3-inch squared area, the generator maintained a 150% power density advantage over competitive units in the market, with a total power output of 56.6 watts. The researchers envisioned these being used in something like an industrial power plant on pipes, where you have hundreds of feet of these and able to generate kilowatts of energy that would otherwise just be going out into the ether, probably causing a problem, probably causing the need for additional cooling if all of these heat pipes are generating heat and not being used. So, Sarah, we're in a environment now where we're looking to decrease carbon footprints. We're looking to increase energy efficiency, kind of across industries here. This is really exciting to me because this is something that can be used if this can be commercialized, at scale to kind of, okay, we can increase the efficiency, not really having to change the infrastructure, as kind of a stopgap. And I feel like
wrap around the infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, now this is a big step. This is a research. We're talking about 3 inches square area here, but the initial research is showing that this does scale fairly well in their initial trials. So that is exciting to see for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about what's going on at a power plant, for example, not having too much insider information on how much heat is being wasted at something like this, can't imagine that this wouldn't be a good thing, if used responsibly, and if it ends up being something that heat is saved and therefore savings are passed along to the end user. Great. I also wonder, in household situations, how something like this, and again, people have lots of different heat, and so the solution's not going to be the same for everybody. I mean, I've got a split unit. I don't know exactly how this would help me specifically in my apartment, but just the idea of, hey, let's make this more efficient. It helps everybody. It helps the grid. It helps people's, monthly bills. It seems like research that's going to save us eventually.
Yeah, it's one of those things, the domestic kind of uses for this interest me because, living in Northeast Ohio, I can put solar panels on my roof, but it's going to take 40 years to pay off. Something like this, I feel like for a lot of people in a lot of different areas could be a really interesting way. Again, it's not an infinite energy generator, right? We're still burning stuff to make all of this heat come out somewhere, right? We're still generating that steam, but it does increase efficiency, which can't be a bad thing. Again, commercialization probably a long way off for this, but a really interesting advance, and can't wait to see where that's going.
Well, listen, folks, all this week, we're making exclusive Patreon content available to everybody. You might be on the fence saying, well, as a patron, is my experience going to be really different? We hope the answer is yes. So keep an eye on your public feeds and see a little bit more about what you're getting in those feeds for patrons if you were to be a patron regularly. And if you like what you hear, you can learn more about where you can get to be a patron at patreon.com/DTNS. All right, everybody. We all want faster internet, and it might be a good day for faster internet news if you're an AT&T customer, or you might be a potential customer. AT&T rolled out upgraded plans for its fiber-based broadband service, with plans that top off at symmetrical speeds of 2 gigabits per second and 5 gigabits per second, respectively. The new plans are available in over 70 metro areas, including Dallas, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. The 2 gigabit per second plan start at $110 per month, goes up to $180 per month for the 5 gigabit per second plan. AT&T also says it'll be imposing equipment fees and data caps and annual contracts on new customers. So a little bit of a same old same, but that was
Sarah,
working.
Real quick, that is a typo. They will not be. That is a change in policy for AT&T. So that is my fault.
So much better news. AT&T says it won't impose equipment fees. Yes. Data caps? Yes. Or annual contracts on new customers? We'll see, AT&T. The company plans to expand its fiber network as well from 15 million to 30 million customers by 2025. But that's not all, because if you don't require wired internet or you're just really a lot more interested in wireless, MediaTek conducted the first live demo of Wi-Fi 7 to key customers and industry collaborators. The demo showed MediaTek's multi-link operation technology combining multiple channels on different frequencies. The Wi-Fi Alliance says that Wi-Fi 7 could provide speeds of at least 30 gigabits per second. Oh, that sounds good. MediaTek said it expects Wi-Fi 7 products on the market by 2023, so it's not going to be tomorrow, but it's on the horizon, although the standard could still be in draft specification at that time, which could slow things down.
Yeah, and theoretically might be some software updates needed to bring everything in line once those early products come to market. But those Wi-Fi 7 speeds, 30 gigabits per second, we're talking Thunderbolt 3 kind of levels of speed. And that really opens up a lot of interesting possibilities for wireless when, I know VR and AR are like super buzzy words, but if you could have a wireless connection that could do, point to point 30 gigabits per second, that's
way better than my wired connection right now. Yeah. And my wired connection is pretty fast.
Well, and what's interesting about what MediaTek's doing is, multiple channels, different frequencies. So theoretically you can work around any kind of interference. So if you're in, an apartment or something like that, would be able to better deal with a little bit more crowded spectrum. But the other side of this is that AT&T knows. So now I am a AT&T fiber subscriber, full disclosure. It's interesting because I love speeds and feeds, 5 gigabit per second, amazing. But I'm also the guy that downgraded from the gigabit plan to the 100 meg plan because I ended up not justifying. I was looking at kind of how I was using it, and it just ended up 100 megabits was good enough for work and streaming and all that good stuff. So I do wonder for commercial use, I understand why you could use that. You have a bunch of machines hooked up. Faster is always better. Want all the bandwidth. The smaller for the home use, I'm not saying it's not needed. I'm not saying this is not a good thing, but I feel like the use cases perhaps will be discovering once the service is available, right?
So as a Comcast customer, with a gigabit internet plan, I hadn't done a speed test in a while. So I was like, when I was researching this story, I was like, what am I really getting? It's quite well under a gigabit, honestly, for download, upload is nowhere near. And unless Skype gets weird on me every once in a while, my connection is extremely solid. Even I run an Airbnb. We're all on the same big old mesh network, and people are always saying, well, we're going to work from here and we're probably going to be doing video calls and our kids have to Zoom into school. Like, can you handle it? And I'm like, oh, we can handle it. Don't you worry. And again, when I look at these speeds, I'm like, that's crazy. Who needs that? But the thing is that if you need it, you need it. And if you've lived in a space where you don't have that capacity, then you don't think you need it until all of a sudden it's offered to you, and then you find all sorts of ways to use bandwidth.
Well, yeah, those kind of use cases, like you said in your Airbnb, I could definitely see you get that 5 gig plan. You have, an apartment, a small apartment or condo thing. And, hey, everybody wants to split it. We can figure out how to separate all the, the accounts and everything like that. That's a lot of bandwidth for a lot of people. So again, good that they're expanding the 70 metro areas, not insignificant, big markets getting hit with this. And what's fun about this is seeing what people will do with this, and if it pushes companies like Comcast to roll out faster fiber as well.
Indeed.
All right, and finally, a few interesting tidbits from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman's Power On.
What are you ending the show?
I am. I'm calling it early. One of these bits of news involves a team on the long-reported Apple car, or lack thereof. The team's head of software engineering program management, Joe Bass, recently updated his LinkedIn page to state he left the company and is now working on technical program management at Meta. According to Gurman, nearly the entire Apple car management team in place just 1 year ago is gone. Of course, Gurman also has plenty of reports on more immediately available hardware, saying Apple's spring event in March or April, we haven't set a date yet, that's where he's pegging it, will feature a refreshed iPhone SE with 5G and an updated iPad Air with an A15 SoC. That's the one used in the iPad Mini and the iPad, one of the other iPads. Now I can't think of it. Yes, the iPad Pro. Thank you, Sarah. Gurman sources also say that Apple is readying the widest array of new hardware products in its history for the fall, with Gurman estimating the new iPhone series, a low-end MacBook Pro, a redesigned MacBook Air, a new iMac, Mac Pro, AirPods Pro, iPad Pro, and Apple Watch. So, Sarah, are you looking forward to the hardware bonanza that will be this fall from Apple?
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a long one. I'll go ahead and, give myself 4 hours for this. So a few things to unpack here. First of all, it wasn't that long ago. In fact, it was Bloomberg back in November and said, okay, Apple's internal Apple car team, whatever you want to call them, maybe Apple's moving a little bit more to, we're going to, provide the guts inside the car that somebody else provides. And, some car manufacturers were floated around as potential partners. So this does not mean, that was just a couple months ago. This does not mean that Apple is not still working on this. It does seem to be that either a lot of executives bounced because they weren't getting anywhere, or Apple made sure that they did. So I'm not going to say that the car isn't still a thing, but it looks a little like, I don't know. I don't know where we are, especially because Apple's touting all sorts of other things that it's working on. For example, and of course, Mark Gurman is, one of the best Apple sources that we have working for Bloomberg now. But if Apple has just a slew of product announcements this fall, if the AR VR headset isn't part of that, maybe then Apple will be in a better position to not have to explain why the, supply chain and heating issues and all sorts of stuff that is rumored to be part of the problem with this whole rollout, could be shelved a bit.
Yeah, I do wonder if that does play a part of it. Hey, we're gonna spread the field with all the new hardware to maybe because we can't ship the VR headset for the end of the year or something like that. But the other thing is, if they release all this, let's assume maybe Q4 is when these are going to be mainly in the retail channels. Apple already has been maintaining a strong, kind of Q4. And again, I know we don't get into the financials too much on DTNS, but I feel like they can't get off that roller coaster, right? Like you have to keep increasing that Q4. And I know Apple does not have any problem selling hardware. They basically set a record, right? Like every other quarter. So it seems like that's the anecdotal evidence. But that's putting a lot of eggs in that kind of Q4 basket. I wonder if the chip shortages also played a role in them not being able, maybe they wanted to put maybe the iMac or, the lower end redesigned or the lower end MacBook Pro. They wanted to release that earlier, knew they weren't going to have the supply at that time. And so they had to delay it, maybe something like that, and forcing them to kind of push it all into this one seemingly kind of big fall coming up.
Yeah, just personally, I've been thinking about getting a new iMac for some time. And my MacBook Air is just over a year old, really. So I'm like, okay, how are you going to redesign the MacBook Air? I got an M1 MacBook Air. It's pretty great. I don't really have any complaints about it. It's just my little silent killer, over in the corner. But yeah, this is, a lot of the stuff is probably going to, if you're in the market for an iPad Pro, if you never had the AirPods Pro, a new Apple Watch, all of this is great. It can also just be incremental and then meant to be like a bonanza of products that aren't really super wow on their own. Mm-hmm. Again, just speculating. All right. Well, last week we talked quite a bit about the idea of folks that may not be paying for Google Workspace for custom domains and the like. Things might be changing. So in the mailbag, we got quite a few reactions. Jeremy, Tony, Allison Sheridan all chimed in. We're going to read Jeremy's email. Jeremy said, Jeremy from sunny Melbourne, Australia, wanted To add some input on the changes to Google Workspace, Jeremy says, I've been using the service for about 15 years. Jeremy, you and me both. This is only used for family email, but I have 10 accounts set up, all I can set up on the free tier. So the concept of now paying $6 per account per month is very expensive just for email. The other thing to also consider is that Google has been continually removing functionality away from the Workspaces service. So you can't use a Workspaces account to access family sharing type service. Google Home services are limited. Even managing additional storage can be difficult. This reduces the value of the service dramatically. Jeremy says, I've commenced to looking for alternatives, with the most important to be able to maintain my personal domain. Cost will obviously be a defining factor, but it needs to be easy to migrate and then have all the family also easily reconnect. I'm with you, Jeremy. One of the things that a lot of folks who emailed us about this, because there were quite a few of you, said, I have not gotten any official anything from Google about this. I have not either. I keep kind of waiting for it because I'm a grandfathered in free custom domain person. And I've been using Google for many years for this reason. But I absolutely agree with Jeremy. So sarahlane.com is my custom domain that I use in this way. Nobody else is getting email. I didn't have to set up multiple accounts. It's really just me, but it's a personal thing. And I've had it for so many years, and it would probably not kill me to figure out another option for this, but it would change my workflow quite a bit. All right, Rich, you got nothing.
I mean, hearing the personal story.
I want you to feel my pain, Rich.
And Jeremy specifically, like seeing that, like, I have these 10 accounts, this 60, this, all of a sudden it's going to turn into $60 a month. Yeah, it's easy to say, all right, you got to pay for it, you got it for free, but like hearing that, like, it does mean like, man, and not to get any word is also like very bizarre from Google.
It is a little bizarre. What is not bizarre is some of our patrons who have been with us a really long time, who have been super loyal to us, and we like to thank some of you each week. And today it is Tim Ashman. Tim, you are one of our top lifetime supporters for DTNS, and we thank you so much for all the years of support. Woo. We are also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 21:30 UTC on this here very show. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. And guess what? We're going to be back doing it all tomorrow because we do it every week, Monday through Friday. Tomorrow, Owen JJ Stone joins us. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program. Look at the bow.
And how? Meow, mama. Everybody, if you want to vote on shows and submit vote on shows. What am I saying?
Vote on titles.
What a case of the Mondays I've Showbot.tv/DTNS and the number 2 is where you can submit title suggestions and also vote on them for both DTNS and GDI.
I'm digging them. I'm looking.
They are some really good ones. Please go in there and vote because I am literally inundated with very clever titles.
It's going to be a close race, I feel like.
Princess Delirium.
Yes.
You've got my vote so far. We've got 16 votes over on the DTNS side. GDI, only 9 votes. I know everybody's had a long weekend. I know you all watched a lot of football, ate a lot of pizza, but you got to vote.
Shape it up, folks.
Yeah, I mean, vote or we'll vote for you.
Mm-hmm. Sundays, you can always tell there's always a football game because it always seems the streets and everything seem just a little emptier, like noticeably. Not tremendously, but noticeably.
The streets seem emptier this Sunday because we got hit by a pretty good snowstorm. So we were pretty empty.
Do your streets have names?
No, we have numbers. I live on street 627.
Oh, okay. I was trying to make a U2 joke, and I don't know where we went.
Soviet style. Is that some sort of musical group?
Soviets, Russia, joke makes you.
No.
You make joke makes you. Well, I don't know how many Russia jokes I can make today. But you know what? That's a different show.
That's go to Russia Joke Podcast.
Yes.
Don't know why we would do that.
You know what's funny? No, it's it's good stuff. I felt like, well, today was the case at the Mondays in many ways for me, but I don't feel like Monday is a Monday the way that other people think Mondays are Mondays, if that makes sense. Because we're all just kind of on a 24-hour news cycle. Like, sure, the weekend's a little different because we don't record DTNS shows or daily tech headline shows, and we're not doing GDI. Weekend being Saturday and Sunday, but I there's even almost more work I feel like I do because I just want to have time to be able to read stuff that will factor into the shows in the next week, where it's a little bit harder to do, when you're kind of on that hamster wheel during the week.
It also helps that I love tech meme on like a Sunday because it's like a look at trend piece.
Yeah.
Or like there's like 3 headlines that's just like those are the weekend headlines for every.
How crypto captured the imagination of many.
Yeah.
You're like, am I reading this today? Yeah.
And you're
I don't
like,
know. Like, what's the news? I need the news.
No, I'm reading that.
Yeah. I think the tech meme editors are really great, but sometimes like the top 4 stories are where I'm like, I mean, it almost looks like AI wrote all these headlines, or it's like, why Microsoft is doomed, how Alphabet became undoomed.
Well, it's I mean, in a way, a lot of those can be. I mean, it's really just kind of like a AI version of Mad Libs. You just take your favorite tech company and then you add an adverb or an adjective, doomed, bankrupt, going to be sold, going to be this, in trouble, and then in trouble with, and then you put a government agency or national government.
I will give the, like you said, Sarah, the editors at TechMeme do a really great job. I don't know why I backed off of amazing. I'll say amazing job. But the one thing is and to their credit, every once in a while they'll have a headline in the river. That's my usual way of consuming the tech meme. And it'll be like Satya Nadella says blah 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 blah, and I'll be like, oh, that's a really interesting quote. I want to see what said that, and I'll click on it, and it's like from like a Wall Street or it's in a Wall Street Journal article, and that's like the 12th paragraph, and I was like, oh, you really dug into like this whole thing about
what you would like the takeaway to be.
Yes, antitrust. Yeah, it's a much broader piece, but I appreciate that they're taking out that, and for the tech audience, I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, there's editorial stuff going on for sure, which I appreciate. In fact, yes, there are certain headlines where I'm like, I should read more about that. So I'm like, oh, this is not really the point of the story as it was originally written. But it was a takeaway that somebody at TechMeme was like, no, this is actually the takeaway. And we do that all the time. There are lots of things that, we all kind of read and then parse and go, well, what's the interesting part of this? Some of it is just, it's news. It is. I mean, of course, it's all news. But how does this change our lives? How does this, factor into the wider conversation that we're all having? And, it's a daily struggle.
I feel like we do that quite often with earnings reports, right? Because it's like if you go to like CNBC or whatever, they'll have the all the figures, which are great. They'll have all the breakouts, but it's like, why is this interesting to a general consumer or to a not Wall Street investor? And like that to me is like one of my favorite things is kind of parse into those and be like, all right, I got to figure out. Let me look where the services went up. Oh, the services are up 10%. I figured out what that means.
Well,
like,
yeah,
that's the fun stuff.
Yeah, because it ends up, how does this trickle down to something that you as a consumer who cares about the company or doesn't care about the company may care about the company in the future? I do that with earnings reports all the time. I mean, I don't have stock in one tech company. So, I mean, I don't, I just kind of look at it and go, how about that? But what does it mean for what the company is going to do in the future? And that's something that many of us can relate to.
I just want faster internet that's symmetrical, but I don't need to rewire my house to do it. And by rewire, I mean draw a line across 2 telephone poles that are in other people's yards, because it was a pain enough to get it fixed the first time.
So I had this is very off topic, but it's GDI after all. So what is? So my cat Ralphie, who's doing really well, but he's on some medication now to make him feel a little bit better. He had kind of a upset tummy for a while. The vet that I took him to was an ER vet that's not very close to me, and I had called them and I said, yeah, I think we're gonna probably want more of this medicine. It seems to be working really well and he's feeling better. And they were kind of, I said, can you transfer it to like the prescription to my vet so that I could go, kind of right down the street and get it? No, we can't do that. I'm like, weird, because you're the same company, but okay. I said, what we can do though is send it to Safeway Pharmacy. Is there a Safeway near you, or a CVS? And I was like, well, there's a Safeway like not that far away from me. It would be more convenient than going to you. Let's do that. They said, okay. I'm like, strange. I never knew that you could transfer drug medications for pets to like a
human pharmacy,
grocery store. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I go in there yesterday, and they've called me a couple like automated phone calls, like your prescription is ready. So I knew that they were waiting for me. I go in there yesterday and the guy behind the counter is like, no record of you, sorry. And I'm like, I think you should look again. Pretty sure that it's here. And he was like, I'm sorry. We just don't have it. And I was like, it's a prescription for my cat. And he was like, oh, well, why didn't you say so? And like walks over into like some like closet, opens it up, brings it out, and was like, no, our pet stuff is like in another area. Where I was like, wow, I had no idea you could do this. And I'm sure it depends on, what the drug is, and what grocery store you're working with, but pretty convenient. Turns out.
We're all networked.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I got the cat prescription closet over at the Safeway.
Oh, we put it in the closet. I do like that though. They're like, oh, we don't put it by the human medication. I mean, I guess that.
Well, it was weird. Like it was because it was, it's under my name, and I just figured it would, I don't know. You get a prescription. It's like I'm paying for it, and then, but it was like, no, you had to tell me it was for your cat.
I thought you were going to say it was under the cat's name, and that's why they couldn't find it.
No, it was under my name.
Yeah.
But it was like in some other, I don't know. I guess they
closet of shame.
Aren't using the same database for everybody. I don't know. It all worked out. Got the meds.
All right. Meds. What about titles?
What about them? Okay, for DTNS, our top 3 vote getters, Fred, 819, suggested lightning in an acquisition bottle. JPEG84 suggested, you don't know you need more bandwidth until you get more bandwidth, rather. And Princess Delirium in the top spot with 11 votes. Who let the heat out? You.
As much as I loved that title from Princess Delirium, we had to go with one that would fit from Fred 819, which is lightning in an acquisition bottle.
Beautiful. Well, thank you everybody for submitting titles and also for voting on them. Over on the GDI side, Larry in Atlanta suggested, how much does a 3-year-old weigh anyway? Yes. A thing I would not have been able to answer before today. Stealth Dave suggested the over-underdogs. And Zoe brings bacon in the top spot with 10 votes. Weirdest parent brag.
We went with Zoe brings bacon's sport is like a really good sandwich.
Look at Zoe with multiple entries. And one of her underdogs ending up getting on the top spot. All right. Well, thanks everybody for voting and submitting. Always fun. And let's keep it coming tomorrow.
All right. Before we sign off here, I'd like to give a shout out to those people on Twitch chat who have been supporting us. We have Windmill Steve, who resubscribed with Prime. We've had Psycho Motors cheered us on with 50 bits. Larry and Lana cheered us on with 20. Beatmaster 80 cheered us on with 400 bits. Loki Roberts cheered us on with 200. Zoe Bean Bacon cheered us on as well. And Loki followed that up with another 40. So thank you all so much, especially CPOTS 50, Chaz Basden, and Vavra for resubscribing. You guys are great, and all the support you give us really does help us.
It does. Over on the Patreon side, we didn't get any new bosses over the weekend. So, hopefully new patrons, you're just kind of waiting for us. We did get some raises, though. So we'd like to thank Ronaldo Sanchez. Thank you for the raise. We also like to thank Alan. Thank you so much for the raise. Radar went up to a yearly subscription and gave us a little bump. Thank you, Radar. Lore Schindler gave us another raise. Lou Goon gave us another raise, also went to the annual subscription. So thank you to everybody for bumping up. If you can, we sure do appreciate it. And we couldn't do the show without you. So your support is everything to us.
All right.
Truly.
And we'll be back tomorrow with Dr. J.J. Owen Stone.
We will. Doctor.
To talk about, do we really need 8K? Or rather, when will 8K be a necessary thing for most people?
Yeah.
Until then.
Contact lenses get better.
Yeah. All right. Until then, we'll catch you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, Internet.
Good day.